The bitter Antarctic wind howled across the defense complex as Captain Ji-woo Park fired her last plasma round at the advancing Nexus forces. Blood trickled down her arm, staining the white snow crimson. She watched as the round hit one of the crystalline beings, shattering it into thousands of glittering pieces. But for every one she destroyed, 3 more took its place. Ji-woo pulled back behind the reinforced walls of the complex, checking her weapon's energy core. The reading flashed red, nearly depleted. She had maybe 2 shots left, if she was lucky. The wound in her arm throbbed, a reminder of how close the enemy had come in their last attack. 10 years ago, when the Nexus first appeared in Earth's orbit, humanity had been unprepared. Their ships had descended like falling stars, beautiful and deadly. No one knew where they came from or what they wanted. They simply started killing. City by city, country by country, they methodically wiped out human civilization. The defense complex's sensors beeped urgently. Ji-woo glanced at the display, her heart sinking. More ships were entering the atmosphere. Through the swirling snow, she could see their crystalline forms catching the dim Antarctic light, refracting it in ways that would have been beautiful if they weren't so deadly. She thought of the billions dead, of the burning cities and fallen nations. The last radio transmission she'd received was 3 months ago, from a bunker in Australia. Then silence. As far as she knew, she was the last human left alive on Earth. The complex shuddered as another blast hit the outer walls. Ji-woo moved through the corridors she knew by heart, past empty rooms that once housed hundreds of soldiers. Now it was just her, defending humanity's last secret. Deep beneath her feet, sleeping in their frozen chambers, lay humanity's last hope. But they weren't ready yet. She needed to buy them more time. A deafening crash echoed through the complex. They had breached the outer defenses. Ji-woo ran to the security station, activating the inner barriers. The Nexus soldiers moved like liquid crystal, their forms shifting and flowing as they advanced. Their weapons looked like extensions of their bodies, growing and reshaping as needed. She fired one of her last shots, the plasma bolt burning through 3 of them. The aliens made no sound as they died, simply shattering like ice. More poured in through the breach. Ji-woo activated the complex's last defense system, sonic pulses that should have shattered their crystalline forms. But these Nexus troops were different. They adapted, their structures changing to absorb the sound waves. Running was no longer an option. Ji-woo checked the status of the cryogenic chambers below. The readouts showed green across the board. The Frost Legion slept on, safe in their frozen cocoons, waiting for the moment of humanity's greatest need. She smiled grimly. That moment had come. As the aliens advanced, Ji-woo thought of her family, her parents in Busan, who died in the first wave, her sister who fell defending Seoul, her brother, lost somewhere in the Pacific when the Nexus destroyed the refugee ships. She had carried their memories through 10 years of fighting, through the fall of every human city and stronghold. The security doors buckled under the alien assault. Ji-woo took position, her back to the wall, plasma rifle ready. Through the gaps in the failing door, she could see their crystalline forms shifting and flowing like living glass. The last door gave way with a screech of tearing metal. Ji-woo fired her final shot, watching it tear through the first wave of aliens. As more poured in, she drew her backup weapon, an old-fashioned pistol loaded with special rounds. Each bullet was designed to fragment on impact, maximizing damage to the crystalline beings. She had saved these for the end, knowing they would be needed. The first alien reached for her with a limb that shifted from solid to blade-like. Ji-woo ducked, firing point-blank into its core. The beam shattered, its fragments slicing her cheek as they flew past. More came, and she fired again and again until the gun clicked empty. Through the complex's broken walls, she could see more ships descending from the clouds. The Nexus had brought an army to kill one human. She felt a strange pride in that. Even at the end, they feared what a single human could do. Blood loss made her vision blur, but Ji-woo stood straight as the aliens surrounded her. She pressed her hand against the wall panel behind her, entering one final code. Deep below, systems began to activate, starting the revival sequence for the Frost Legion. The aliens didn't notice the slight vibration beneath their feet, didn't understand that in killing Earth's last free human, they had actually ensured humanity's survival. Ji-Woo Park, the last human defender, smiled as the aliens raised their weapons. "You should have killed us all when you had the chance," she whispered. The crystalline beings struck as one, their weapons blazing with strange energy. In her last moment, Ji-Woo thought she felt the ice beneath the complex shift, as if something massive was stirring from a long sleep. The Nexus forces moved through the complex, confirming their victory, unaware that far below, in chambers of ice and steel, humanity's greatest warriors were beginning to wake. Their mission to exterminate humanity had just triggered its rebirth instead. Now the true war would begin. The final heartbeat of Captain Ji-Woo Park sent a signal racing through hidden fiber optic cables deep beneath the Antarctic ice. In a chamber larger than a football stadium, buried 2 kilometers below the surface, hundreds of status lights began changing from steady red to pulsing blue. The chamber had waited silently for this moment for over 30 years. Clouds of frozen air swirled as ancient systems activated. The massive room's temperature began to rise from its storage level of -100 degrees to a more life-sustaining range. Row after row of cryogenic pods lined the walls and floor, each one a technological marvel containing one of humanity's greatest secrets. The first pod began its revival sequence. Inside, floating in a specially designed fluid that had kept him perfectly preserved, lay Colonel Do-hyun Lee. His enhanced body had been in suspended animation since before the Nexus invasion. Sensors monitored his vital signs as the preservation fluid slowly drained. His enhanced heart began to beat for the first time in decades, each pump growing stronger as his augmented systems came back online. Around him, other pods hummed to life. The Frost Legion, humanity's ultimate contingency plan, was awakening. Each soldier inside was more than human. They were the result of decades of genetic engineering and cybernetic advancement. Their bones were reinforced with carbon nanotubes, muscles enhanced with synthetic fibers that could generate 10 times the force of natural tissue. Neural implants gave them reaction times faster than any normal human could achieve. The chamber's computer systems began running diagnostic checks on each pod. Of the 500 units, 498 were showing green status. 2 had failed over the long years of waiting, their occupants lost to time. But the remaining Frost Legion soldiers were perfect, preserved exactly as they had been when they volunteered for this mission. In his pod, Do-hyun's enhanced brain began to activate. The neural interface that had kept his mind intact during the long sleep started feeding him status updates. His cybernetic enhancements came online one by one. Enhanced vision, reinforced skeletal structure, accelerated healing systems. Each system had been designed to make him and his fellow soldiers the perfect weapons against any threat to humanity. The chamber's artificial intelligence monitored the revival process carefully. It had been programmed with one purpose: to ensure the Frost Legion would be ready when humanity needed them most. That time had come. The death of the last free human had triggered the Winter's Wait protocol, and now Earth's defenders would rise from their frozen sleep. Next to Do-hyun's pod, Major Sun Hee Kang's unit began its revival sequence. Her enhanced muscle tissue twitched as electrical stimulation prevented atrophy. The nanomachines in her bloodstream activated, beginning their work of preparing her body for awakening. Like all members of the Frost Legion, she had been chosen for both her natural abilities and her psychological profile. They were warriors, but they were also humanity's guardians. The chamber's systems registered movement on the surface. The Nexus forces were still there, searching the ruins of the defense complex above. They had no idea what lay beneath their feet. The chamber's walls, reinforced with materials that didn't exist in any public record, kept them hidden and safe. In their pods, the soldiers' minds began to process the situation. Their neural interfaces were updating them on Earth's condition, feeding them data about the decade of war and loss that had occurred while they slept. They learned of humanity's near extinction, of the billions dead, of Captain Park's final stand that had triggered their awakening. The rage they felt was controlled, focused. They had been engineered to maintain perfect emotional control, even under extreme stress. This rage would not cloud their judgment. It would sharpen it. They were humanity's last hope, and they would not fail. The revival process reached its final stages. Life support systems switched from preservation to preparation mode. The soldiers' enhanced bodies were almost ready to emerge into a world that desperately needed them. Their weapons and armor, stored in separate chambers, were being prepared for their use. Do-hyun's eyes opened first, his enhanced vision quickly adjusting to the dim light. The pod's cover slid away smoothly, and he took his first breath of real air in decades. His augmented muscles responded perfectly as he sat up, shedding the last drops of preservation fluid. Around him, other pods were opening, his fellow soldiers awakening to join the fight. The chamber's AI delivered its final status report. The Frost Legion was ready. 498 of humanity's finest warriors, enhanced beyond normal human limits, were awakening to reclaim their world. The Nexus had thought they achieved victory by killing the last free human, but they had actually ensured their own defeat. As the soldiers emerged from their pods, they moved with inhuman grace and precision. Their bodies, perfectly preserved and enhanced, were ready for combat. The chamber's armory opened, revealing weapons and armor designed specifically for their enhanced capabilities. These were not just tools of war, they were extensions of the soldiers themselves. Deep beneath the ice, humanity's greatest warriors prepared for battle. The Nexus would soon learn that killing the last free human had been their greatest mistake. The Frost Legion was awake, and Earth's long night was about to end. Colonel Do-hyun Lee's enhanced eyes adjusted instantly to the dim blue lighting of the underground chamber. The last drops of cryogenic fluid rolled off his skin as he took his first conscious breath in 30 years. His augmented lungs analyzed the air automatically. Oxygen levels were lower than when he entered stasis, and there were trace elements he didn't recognize. The world above had changed. Around him, the other pods opened with soft hisses of releasing pressure. Lieutenant Hae-Nul Kim emerged from the pod to his right, her movements precise despite decades of inactivity. Their enhanced muscles had been kept from atrophy by regular electrical stimulation during their long sleep. Major Sun Haikang rose from her pod across the chamber, her cybernetic eyes glowing faintly as they calibrated. Do-hyun's neural interface connected with the chamber systems, downloading 30 years of sensor data directly into his enhanced brain. He processed the information in seconds: the arrival of the Nexus ships, the systematic destruction of human civilization, the final stand of Captain Park above them. His hands clenched involuntarily, the reinforced bones creaking under the pressure of his enhanced muscles. "Status report," he called out, his voice strong despite its long disuse. The other soldiers responded in sequence, their bodies and systems checking out perfectly. Only 2 pods had failed during their long wait, an acceptable loss given the duration of their sleep. 498 warriors remained, each one worth 100 normal soldiers. Hanul moved to the armory section, her bare feet silent on the metal floor. The weapons storage units recognized her biometric signature and opened smoothly. Inside lay their combat suits, marvels of engineering designed specifically for their enhanced capabilities. The armor was lightweight but stronger than tank plating, with built-in systems that would interface directly with their neural enhancements. "The Nexus forces are still above us," Sun Hae reported, her cybernetic eyes scanning through kilometers of ice and rock. "They're establishing a base where the defense complex stood. They don't know we're here." A predatory smile crossed her face, made slightly inhuman by the faint glow of circuits beneath her skin. Do-hyun's neural interface provided him with the combat data they had on the Nexus forces. They were formidable, crystalline beings with technology far beyond what humanity had possessed before their arrival. But the Frost Legion had been designed to face exactly this kind of threat. Their bodies were weapons, their minds were computers, and their spirits were still purely human. The charges detonated silently, the sound contained by their advanced technology. The wall crumbled inward, and the team was through the breach before the first pieces hit the ground. Their enhanced reflexes made the world seem to move in slow motion as they engaged the internal security forces. Major Sunhee's squad had achieved similar success at a Nexus communication hub in the former Russian territory. They moved through the facility like wraiths, planting data extraction devices and eliminating any resistance. The aliens' crystalline forms shattered under the impact of their specially designed weapons. Data stream acquired, Sunhee reported through the neural network. Their encryption is complex, but our systems are breaking it down. The information they were gathering would be crucial for understanding their enemy's weaknesses and plans. Back in Seoul, Hae-Newell's team reached the center's core. The processing center was where the Nexus converted Earth's resources into materials for their war machines. The destruction of these facilities would cripple their production capabilities. Charges set, Minho confirmed. The explosives would trigger a chain reaction through the crystalline structure, completely destroying the facility. They had 7 seconds to clear the blast radius. Their enhanced muscles propelled them through the facility at incredible speeds. Normal humans couldn't have survived the G-forces their bodies generated as they ran and jumped through the complex. They cleared the structure with 2 seconds to spare. The explosion started as a bright point of light in the center of the building. It spread outward in a geometric pattern, following the crystal's natural structure. The entire facility collapsed inward, its remains dissolving into fine powder that would be useless to the Nexus. Third target eliminated, Hae-Newell reported. Moving to extraction point Alpha, her team vanished into the ruins as Nexus response ships appeared in the sky above. They would find nothing but destruction. Do-hyun received similar reports from teams across the globe. The Frost Legion was striking everywhere at once, giving the enemy no time to adapt or respond effectively. Their enhanced soldiers could operate indefinitely without rest, their cybernetic systems maintaining peak performance. Sunhee's analysis of the captured data revealed something interesting. The Nexus is panicking, she reported. They thought they had achieved total victory. They can't understand how they're being attacked when their sensors show no human life signs. The Legion's stealth technology was proving more effective than even its designers had hoped. In the 3 weeks since their awakening, the Frost Legion had destroyed 15 processing centers, 7 communication hubs, and 3 military installations. They moved constantly, using hidden underground networks to travel between targets. The Nexus was forced to divert more and more resources to protect their facilities, weakening their overall control. Hae-Newell's team reached their extraction point just as dawn broke over the ruined city. Their combat suits were undamaged, their energy reserves still high. They could continue fighting for days if necessary, but Do-hyun had ordered all teams to return for debriefing and tactical planning. The enemy is adapting, Do-hyun announced during the debriefing. They're changing their crystal structure to be more resistant to our weapons. But they're still reacting, not anticipating. We maintain the advantage. The soldiers received their new mission assignments. They would strike deeper into enemy territory, targeting command and control centers. The Nexus was about to learn that their victory over humanity had been premature. As the teams prepared for their next missions, Hae-Newell checked her weapons and armor. The enhanced soldiers required no rest, their bodies and minds operating at peak efficiency thanks to their augmentations. They were the perfect guerrilla force, unstoppable, untraceable, and utterly dedicated to their cause. "For those we lost," she whispered, a phrase that had become their unofficial motto. The other soldiers nodded in agreement. They fought not just for survival, but for revenge, for justice, and for the future of humanity. The Frost Legion disappeared into the shadows of the ruined Earth, preparing to strike again. The Nexus would find no peace, no rest, and no quarter. Humanity's enhanced warriors were proving that even in defeat, Earth would never truly fall. The soldiers moved through their revival procedures with practiced efficiency. They helped each other into their combat suits, checked weapons, and established neural links with their equipment. Each suit of armor was a second skin, responding to thought as quickly as their own muscles. Their weapons were extensions of themselves, linked directly to their enhanced nervous systems. "Remember your training," Du Hyun addressed his troops as they assembled. "We are humanity's last line of defense. Everything that made us human, our emotions, our memories, our connections to the world above, these are not weaknesses. They are weapons sharper than any blade, stronger than any armor. The enemy thinks they've won. They think humanity is finished. We're going to show them how wrong they are." The soldiers stood at attention, their armor gleaming in the dim light. They were beautiful and terrible to behold, the pinnacle of human engineering and determination. Each one carried enough firepower to level a small city, but their greatest weapons were their enhanced minds and unbreakable will. Haenul's sensors detected movement above. The Nexus forces are setting up long-term structures. They think they've won completely. Her voice carried a cold anger that her emotional regulators didn't quite suppress. Like all of them, she had family somewhere in the ruined world above. Sun Hai accessed the chamber's strategic computers, pulling up maps of the changed world. Most cities were in ruins, but the geography remained the same. The Nexus had established control points at strategic locations, all of which were now targets for the Frost Legion. Do Hyun made his decision. They would begin with surgical strikes. Small teams hitting vulnerable points in the Nexus network. They would gather intelligence, rescue any surviving humans they could find, and prepare for larger operations. The enemy's overconfidence would be their weakness. "We move in 1 hour," he announced. "Teams of 4. Silent insertions, gather data, eliminate targets of opportunity, and return. No heroics, no risks. We need to understand our enemy before we can destroy them." The soldiers acknowledged the orders, breaking into pre-assigned teams. Their neural networks synchronized, allowing them to communicate silently and coordinate their movements perfectly. They were more than soldiers. They were humanity's revenge, justice frozen in ice, and now thawed for retribution. As the teams prepared for their first missions, Do Hyun looked at the empty pod that had been his home for 3 decades. They had slept while humanity fought and died above them. That sacrifice would not be in vain. The Frost Legion would reclaim Earth, step by bloody step. "For Earth," he said softly, and 498 voices responded in perfect unison. "For humanity." The chamber that had been their tomb was now their launching pad. Humanity's finest warriors were awake, and the real war was about to begin. The Frost Legion was about to unleash itself on an enemy that had never faced anything like them. The awakening was complete. Now came the reckoning. Through the ruins of what was once Seoul, 4 shadows moved without a sound. Their enhanced vision pierced the darkness as they approached the gleaming crystal structure the Nexus had built over the city's remains. Lieutenant Haenul Kim led her team, their combat suits blending perfectly with the rubble and darkness. Processing center ahead, she communicated through their neural link. Security patterns unchanged. The crystalline guards moved in their predictable patterns, unaware that they were being watched by enemies they couldn't detect. The Frost Legion's armor contained technology that bent light and sound around them, making them nearly invisible. Halfway across the world, Colonel Do Hyun Lee monitored the operation from their mobile command center. His team had already destroyed 2 similar facilities that night, striking fast and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The Nexus was still trying to understand what was happening to their supposedly secure installations. Haenul's team reached their entry point. Sergeant Min Ho placed their breaching charges, specially designed explosives that would shatter the crystalline structure along its natural fault lines. The team synchronized their neural interfaces, timing their attack to the microsecond. The war had entered a new phase, and the hunters had become the hunted. Lieutenant Jae-yun Choi moved silently through the abandoned research facility beneath the ruins of Tokyo. Her enhanced vision revealed layers of dust undisturbed for years, except for recent tracks made by Nexus patrols. She wondered why the aliens kept returning to this particular human facility when they had destroyed so many others. Her neural implants detected an active power source deep within the complex. That was unusual. Most human technology had been destroyed or had failed years ago. She signaled her team to converge on the location, their movements perfectly synchronized through their shared neural network. The power source led them to a sealed vault door, its security systems still functioning after all these years. Jae-yun's cybernetic systems interfaced with the old human technology, breaking through layers of encryption. The door opened with a soft hiss, revealing a room filled with servers and data storage units. Archive storage, she reported to Colonel Do-hyun through their secure channel. Still operational. The Nexus has been trying to access it. The aliens had left their own technology connected to the human servers, attempting to break through the security protocols. Jae-yun connected directly to the database, her enhanced mind processing the information faster than any normal human could. What she found made her enhanced heart skip a beat. "Colonel, you need to see this," she transmitted, sharing the data stream. The archives contained research data from before the invasion. Scientists had discovered something extraordinary in human DNA, a unique genetic sequence that generated a specific type of neural frequency. This frequency, when amplified, could disrupt the crystalline structure of certain types of alien technology. That's why they came. Jae-yun realized, her enhanced mind making connections rapidly. They detected our potential threat before we even knew about it. The Nexus wasn't just another invading force. They were terrified of what humanity might become. More data flowed through her neural interface. The Frost Legion project hadn't been just a last-ditch super soldier program. The scientists had deliberately enhanced this genetic marker in their soldiers, amplifying its potential. Every member of the Legion was a walking weapon against the Nexus's technology. "All teams, converge on my location," Colonel Do-hyun ordered. "Secure the facility. This is Priority Alpha." Within minutes, more Frost Legion soldiers arrived, securing the perimeter and beginning to extract the valuable data. Jae-yun dug deeper into the archives. The enhancement process that had created the Frost Legion had done more than make them stronger and faster. It had activated dormant portions of their genetic code, turning them into living disruption fields. That was why their weapons were so effective against the crystalline aliens. They knew, she transmitted to the team. The scientists who created us, they knew the invasion was coming. They found traces of Nexus scouts decades before the main force arrived. Everything about us was designed specifically to fight them. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just created super soldiers. They had created beings perfectly engineered to be the Nexus's worst nightmare. The aliens' fear had driven them to attempt genocide, but in doing so, they had activated their own destruction. Major Sunhee's voice came through the neural link. "Nexus forces detected, approaching rapidly. They must have monitored the power surge when we accessed the archive." The aliens were coming in force, desperate to destroy what the Legion had discovered. "Download everything," Do-hyun ordered. "Prepare for defensive action. We hold this position until the data is secure." The soldiers moved into position, their enhanced bodies ready for battle. Now they understood why their weapons worked so well against the crystalline beings. They were extensions of their own disruptive capabilities. Jae-yun worked quickly, her cybernetic systems copying massive amounts of data. The archive contained more than just the truth about their creation. It held detailed analysis of Nexus technology and biology. This information could change the course of the war. The first wave of Nexus forces hit their perimeter. The Legion fought with renewed purpose, their weapons and bodies working in perfect harmony to shatter the crystalline attackers. Each soldier was now aware that they were more than enhanced humans. They were the specific answer to the Nexus threat. Download complete. Jia Yun announced as she planted demolition charges around the archive. They couldn't risk the Nexus accessing any of this information. The Legion began their fighting retreat, covering each other with precision born of both training and their neural link. As they emerged from the facility, Jia Yun triggered the charges. The archive collapsed behind them, burying its physical form forever. But the knowledge was now secure in their enhanced minds, shared across their neural network. All teams, return to base, Du Gyun ordered. We need to analyze this data and adjust our strategy. The Legion disappeared into the ruins, leaving only shattered crystalline bodies as evidence of their presence. Back at their hidden base, Jia Yun helped analyze the archive data. The truth gave their mission new meaning. They weren't just fighting for survival or revenge. They were the fulfillment of humanity's preparation for this very threat. The Frost Legion had been created not just to fight the Nexus, but to reveal their fundamental weakness. Now, with this knowledge, they could do more than just resist. They could win. Humanity's resurrection would also be the Nexus's downfall. As Jia Yun prepared for their next mission, she felt a new sense of purpose. They were no longer just soldiers fighting against impossible odds. They were humanity's answer to an ancient threat, designed and built for this exact moment in history. The war was about to change, and the Nexus would learn why they had been right to fear human potential all along. Major Taiwan Park stood atop a ruined skyscraper in Seoul, watching as more cryogenic facilities activated across the city. The ground vibrated subtly as ancient machinery came to life, releasing hundreds more Frost Legion soldiers from their frozen sleep. Through his enhanced vision, he could see the Nexus forces scrambling to respond to the sudden emergence of enemies across their supposedly secure territory. Facility 7 is online, his neural link reported. 245 warriors at combat readiness. Similar reports flooded in from across the globe. The death of Captain Ji-Woo Park hadn't just awakened one Legion facility, it had triggered a cascade of awakenings worldwide. Commander Yun Seo Cho's voice came through the secure network from her position in the former Chinese territory. Asian Alliance Zone reporting full activation. 800 warriors combat ready. Her forces had already begun striking at Nexus strongholds across the region. The Nexus response was chaos. Their crystalline ships moved frantically between positions, trying to counter attacks that came from everywhere at once. The aliens had grown complacent during their years of apparent victory. They weren't prepared for an enemy that could match their technology and exceed their combat capabilities. Taiwan led his team down into the streets of Seoul. The city had been transformed during the occupation. Crystal spires reached toward the sky where human buildings had once stood, but now those alien structures were falling. The enhanced warriors moved like shadows through the ruins, their weapons shattering the crystalline construction with precision strikes. They're trying to establish a defensive line along the old DMZ, reported one of his squad leaders. The Nexus forces were finally beginning to organize a response, but it was too late. The Frost Legion had already infiltrated their positions. Above them, Nexus ships engaged in desperate combat with newly awakened Legion aerial units. The enhanced pilots, their neural systems directly linked to their aircraft, outmaneuvered the alien vessels with impossible precision. Crystal shards rained from the sky as more enemy ships fell. Yun Seo's forces pushed through the former Chinese territories like an unstoppable tide. Her warriors had emerged from hidden facilities in mountains, beneath cities, and under the ocean floor. The Nexus had never discovered these bases during their occupation, and now they paid the price for their oversight. Underground bunker network detected. Taiwan's sensors reported. Human life signs present. This was what they had hoped for. Survivors who had managed to hide from the Nexus all these years. The Legion had been preserved not just to fight, but to protect and save what remained of humanity. The bunker's residents emerged cautiously at first, then with growing hope as they recognized their rescuers as human, despite their enhanced nature. Children born during the occupation saw their first glimpse of sky as Legion warriors evacuated them to secure facilities. Similar reports coming in worldwide. Yun Co transmitted. Hidden human populations emerging. The Nexus failed to achieve total extinction. The knowledge gave the enhanced warriors even more motivation to fight. They weren't just avenging the dead. They were fighting for the living. In orbit, Legion space forces awakened in hidden lunar facilities, launching attacks on Nexus control satellites. The aliens' communication network began to break down as their orbital infrastructure was systematically destroyed by enemies they never knew existed. Taiwan's forces reached the center of Seoul. The Nexus had built their regional command center over the ruins of the old government district. His enhanced soldiers moved through their defenses like ghosts, their bodies generating disruption fields that shattered the crystalline technology around them. "Remember your training," he transmitted to his troops. "We are humanity's shield and sword. Today we take back our world." The warriors moved with perfect coordination, their neural links allowing them to fight as one organism while maintaining individual initiative. The Nexus commanders, their crystalline forms larger and more complex than their soldiers, fought desperately, but they had never faced enemies specifically designed to counter their every advantage. The Legion's weapons and enhanced bodies turned their crystalline technology against them. Yun Co's forces achieved similar victories across Asia. The Nexus forces fell back in disarray, their hive mind structure disrupted by the very presence of the enhanced warriors. Every Legion soldier was a walking weapon against their technology. Seoul is secured, Taiwan reported as the last Nexus ships fled the city. Similar reports came in from across the globe. The aliens were retreating to their last strongholds, finally understanding the true scale of their failure. The sight of Legion warriors patrolling the streets brought survivors out of hiding all across the world. Humanity had endured, hidden in bunkers and secret facilities, waiting for this moment. The Frost Legion had been preserved not just as weapons, but as the protectors of these survivors. The tide has turned. Yun Co transmitted as her forces secured another major city. The Nexus thought they achieved victory, but they only awakened their own destruction. The aliens had never understood that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or numbers, but in their unbreakable spirit. The enhanced warriors continued their advance, coordinating globally through their neural network. They were humanity's revenge, justice, and hope all in one. The Nexus would learn that their greatest mistake wasn't failing to kill all humans. It was giving humanity a reason to become something more. The war wasn't over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity's greatest warriors had awakened, and they would not rest until Earth was free again. Colonel Do-hyun Lee stood at the edge of what had once been Central Park, his enhanced vision taking in the transformed landscape of Manhattan. The Nexus had built their global command center here, a massive crystalline structure that rose where the Empire State Building once stood. This was their final stronghold on Earth, and today it would fall. Lieutenant Hae-Nul Kim's teams moved through the underground tunnel networks, evacuating the last human survivors they'd discovered. These people had survived for years in hidden bunkers beneath the city, waiting for a salvation they never truly believed would come. All civilian evacuation routes secure, Hae-Nul reported through the neural network. Beginning final phase. Across the ruined city, thousands of Frost Legion warriors took their positions. This would be the largest coordinated attack since their awakening. The morning sky filled with Nexus ships as the aliens realized what was coming. Their crystalline vessels formed defensive patterns above their command center, desperate to protect their last foothold on Earth. But they couldn't stop what was already in motion. "All units, commence Operation Daybreak," Do-hyun transmitted. The first wave of Legion warriors emerged from hiding, their enhanced bodies generating disruption fields that made the very air crackle with energy. The Nexus's crystalline technology began to fracture just from their presence. Hae-Nul's teams had finished moving the survivors to safety and joined the assault. Their weapons, designed specifically to exploit the aliens' weaknesses, tore through the enemy's defenses. The Frost Legion moved like a perfect storm, each soldier part of a larger strategy while fighting with individual skill. The Nexus commanders, in their desperation, tried a new tactic. Their ships began to combine, forming a massive crystalline entity above the city. But this only made them more vulnerable to the Legion's disruptive capabilities. The enhanced warriors had been created for exactly this moment. Remember Jiwoo. Du Hyun transmitted as he led the charge toward the command center. Remember all those we lost. The warriors fought with renewed fury, their enhanced bodies pushing past normal human limits. The Nexus forces shattered before their advance. High above, Legion aircraft engaged the remaining alien ships. The enhanced pilots, their minds linked directly to their machines, performed maneuvers that would have killed unaugmented humans. Crystalline ships fell from the sky like rain, their broken forms dissolving before they hit the ground. Hae-Newell's team breached the command center's outer defenses. Inside, they found the Nexus leadership in their true form, beings of pure crystalline energy, now trapped by the very technology they had used to conquer Earth. The aliens tried to communicate, perhaps to negotiate, but it was too late for that. For Earth, Du Hyun transmitted, and the Legion struck as one. Their combined disruption fields shattered the Nexus command structure, both physically and digitally. The alien leaders dissolved into nothingness, their control over Earth's surface finally broken. As the sun rose higher, the last Nexus ships attempted to flee the planet. But Legion forces in orbit, awakened from secret lunar bases, were waiting for them. Not a single alien vessel escaped. Humanity had not just survived, they had achieved total victory. The dawn of the next day broke over a different world. The Frost Legion began the work of rebuilding. Their enhanced capabilities now turned to construction rather than destruction. They worked alongside the survivors, helping to create something new from the ruins of the old world. In what had once been Central Park, Du Hyun stood with Hae-Newell, watching as humans emerged from their shelters to see the sun without fear for the first time in years. Children born during the occupation stared in wonder at the open sky, no longer hidden underground. Captain Park would be proud, Hae-Newell said softly, thinking of the last free human whose sacrifice had awakened them. They had found recordings of her final stand, her courage in the face of certain death. She had died believing she was the last human, never knowing she would trigger humanity's resurrection. The Legion established training centers in the rebuilt cities, preparing the next generation of humanity's defenders. They taught not just combat skills, but the history of what had happened, ensuring that the lessons of the past would never be forgotten. Research teams studied the remaining Nexus technology, understanding now why humanity's unique genetic structure had made them such a threat to the aliens. This knowledge would help them prepare for whatever else waited among the stars. "We're ready for the next phase," Du Hyun announced to his gathered warriors. The Legion had been created not just to save Earth, but to ensure humanity's survival among the stars. They had reclaimed their world. Now it was time to reach beyond it. The enhanced warriors stood as bridges between old humanity and new, their augmented bodies and unbreakable spirit showing what humans could become. They were no longer just soldiers, they were the guardians of humanity's future. As the sun set on the first day of true peace, Du Hyun looked to the stars. The Frost Legion had fulfilled their primary mission, but their work was far from over. Humanity would expand into space, ready this time for whatever they might find. The age of human expansion had begun, and the Frost Legion would lead the way. They would ensure that humanity would never again face extinction. The stars waited, and this time, Earth's children would reach them not as victims, but as equals. A new chapter in human history had opened, written by the warriors who had slept beneath the ice, waiting for their moment to arise and reclaim their world.